morning and welcome to everybody that signed up for this Armchair Chat. This is the second of the year. We'll have two more after convention, more in the fall, and I'm looking forward to that. I am very, very excited to be introducing Sue Breyer and Marilyn Smith. Marilyn's taking the lead on this, talking about AI. Thanks, Marilyn. Just a couple of housekeeping details before we get started. You probably have noticed that as you came in, you were muted. And I'm going to ask you to stay muted until we get to the question and answer portion of this, because sometimes background noises get a little confusing. As a matter of fact, they get so confusing that if you are producing background noise, I am going to mute you for the sake of clarity for our presentation. So please be aware of that. This is also being recorded because the interest level for this was so high that we are going to put it on the web page for people to be accessible to afterwards. So if you object, I guess you can opt out then, because it will be asking you at the top of the screen. Because of the high number of people we're expecting for this, I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you would like to have a question. And we're not all maybe sure of how to do that, but if you would move your mouse and look at the bottom of your screen, at the bottom of your screen, it says react, and there's a heart shape there. If you click on that, one of the bars at the bottom says raise hand. So if you would bear with me in a training exercise, please, and raise your hand so I can make sure that you know how to do it. You're such a good class.
Nice.
And then if you don't put it down yourself with the AI at the bottom, and that's not going to work, I'm afraid I won't be able to see you later on, you can lower your hand or it will do it for you after a certain amount of time. So please lower your hands now. Oh, I am so proud of you guys. You can't teach old dogs new tricks. It's so not true.
True.
Thank you so much.
Right.
All righty. We're going to go ahead and start with the presentation then. So far we have 35 people. Everybody's popping in at the last minute, which is a good thing because we'll be here. I am going to ask Sue Breyer and Marilyn Smith. Marilyn is going to begin, and we're going to talk about AI. It's a really hot topic. I am very curious myself. I'm sure why the rest of you are here. So thank you very much for joining us. Marilyn, the floor is yours.
Okay. Are you gonna screen share?
I will do it right now.
You should be able to screen share.
There we go.
There.
Can you see it? All right.
Yeah, I just made a few slides to get us started so that maybe, the conversation will keep going. This is should be very fast. Artificial intelligence, I think, is a fairly new term, I would say, within the last 8 years or so. And it means exactly what it says. Artificial meaning it's not natural. It's something humans have created. Intelligence is kind of a broad word, but we'll dive into what I think it is at this point. Do we have to use it? Or am I already using it and don't know it? And how can I use it? Okay, these are the kinds of things that we should be able to address, I think, during this hour. Okay, Mary? These are some examples of very early forms of AI, what we now call AI. We didn't call it that, of course, at first because it wasn't even a concept, but it was in practice. In fact, I was thinking to myself, the Yahoo Ask Jeeves, AOL search, those kinds of things, those are from the mid-90s. And any search engine basically is a form of artificial intelligence because we are typing in, and now, of course, we can use Siri or whoever to ask a question by voice. And then by magic, in split second, we get answers. Those kinds of things are AI. And I was thinking there was a word processing machine and program that a secretary in the district office where I was working in the 80s had, and I cannot remember the name of the particular command she used, but she could type in, say, CVHS, and what would come out in print and eventually printed on paper was Coachella Valley High School. So it's just you type in an abbreviation and bingo, the whole thing comes out. You don't have to type it all out every single time. And you would do that, of course, for something that you use a lot. So search engines are good examples of early, what we now call AI. Anytime, especially in social media, that you like or share or repeat or repost anything, you'll start seeing things on your own screen that are related, but you didn't ask for them. Same thing happens with online shopping. You go, say, to Amazon and you search for a travel bag in which you can pack everything for a weekend in one bag and it'll fit underneath the seat in front of you. And for the next umpteen weeks, you'll get more recommendations for that, even if you bought the first one you saw. They still keep recommending the same things because you chose it once. Maps, I think a lot of us use these, either Apple or Google Maps. Put in an address and then you can find the best route that you want. Fastest, this one has tolls, that one has fewer turns, whatever. And of course, autocorrect and autocomplete whenever we type anything, whether it's a text message or a letter or whatever. All of these automatic things are examples of artificial intelligence, early artificial intelligence. Okay,
Next.
Mary?
Next, ma'am. Okay, sorry.
These, I wanted you to see the logos you may have seen, or you probably have seen some of these before, maybe all of them. These are the logos for the apparently the most, I don't know, what would you say, popular, most all over,
Commonly used.
yeah, prominent. The black and white one up there, the three triangles that are intermixed, that's the one that's most talked about, it seems to me, all over the place, Chat GPT, owned by the company OpenAI. The turquoise one, although on my phone it shows up as in black and white, not turquoise and white, is perplexity.ai, which is a nice, simple, super duper. It's I use it mostly like a search engine, but I'm sure I could use it for other things too. Microsoft's Copilot, I believe that's built into Microsoft Office. Is that right? Yeah.
That's correct.
And this one was fairly new to me. I don't think it is new, but I hadn't seen it or heard about it much until this past couple of weeks. Anthropic is the company that owns Claude.ai. So if you want to try that one out, just Claude AI. But I don't, now Perplexity will let you go ahead and search without making an account. But I think Claude requires you to make an account. I'm not sure. You want to be careful about those things. And the Google's Gemini is the one that looked like a blue sort of diamond with curved sides. And it shows up, I think, toward the upper right of just about any Google screen, whether you're in Google itself or Gmail or whatever, the Google's Gemini will show up. So these are some logos that should become or already are familiar to you. Okay. These are some fairly general definitions, which I've sort of given you examples of before. It's simulation of human intelligence processes by machines. And I think that's probably the best thing to keep in mind, that these are simply, and frankly, all of the programming that goes into making programs and apps work. And you hear people talk about coding and coders. Those are the people who write the programs. And one of the things going on today in businesses is that because AI processes can write programs, coders' jobs, not all of them, of course, but a lot of them seem to be going away. That's one of the things I notice in a lot of the news and articles that I read. They basically perform complex tasks. And if you think about a search engine in 1995, that's a complex task. And it's very quick and it's pretty darn good. They got better, obviously, as time went on. And they learn. They learn from the data that they are producing and exposing themselves to, that they are exposed to. One of the things that I was reading the other day, and my older grandson, ran into this a couple of years ago when he was sending out a whole bunch of resumes. These days, resumes, especially the ones obviously that are sent out via the internet, they are not read by people in the first pass. They are read by computer programs. And only the ones that have, I guess, enough of the proper keywords get forwarded and maybe reread and then eventually make their way to a person. Not one of his resumes got to a person.
Huh.
He would not, I always was a sounding board for him for resumes before, but this time he didn't ask me, and I don't think that had anything to do with it. I don't think he was using the keywords, and I didn't understand that until after he already got the job he has. There are different types, and I don't know, narrow is, those kinds are basically computer programming, specific tasks. And if you read Apple News a lot, you'll see that they're talking a lot about what Apple is or isn't going to do about Siri. And I think there's a problem. I don't use Siri much, so I haven't recognized it, but apparently she's not understanding people well enough to produce the results that they're looking for. That's what I think. I've heard about people who will take, say, their latest blood test results and put it into I suppose any, like Chat GPT or any of the others, and see if it will come up with a diagnosis of any kind, or if there's no diagnosis. And it does. And there have been instances, and they made it to the news. I don't think there are very many of them, but that a doctor has admitted, yes, that's right, and I should have picked up on that. So it sort of touches our lives, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly. Generative AI is the term that is most, I don't know if controversial is the word, but it's the most focused on these days, because generative AI implies that it learns from itself, that it can create things. And this is where, I don't know, I see things. There was even a TV program that I watched. It was an episode from about 3 years ago when they were there. It was a detective show, and some guy was mistakenly arrested because somebody else had gone in and put his images on top of the real crook, and the wrong guy was arrested. And those are what they refer to as deep fake images.
Mm-hmm.
They're really frightening, actually, if you really think about it. Okay. Next. These are a couple of commentaries. There's a whole bunch, actually, and in the email that Mary sent out, there were articles and a link to a really good article that I wanted you to have access to. But these two struck me the last couple of weeks. These are just people's opinions out of various magazine articles. 3 types of people. And right now, I think most of us are pretty much afraid that that first one's going to come through. Those that let AI think for them. That's my concern, and I think a lot of that's going on. But I think as time goes by, people will get better at using AI and controlling what they use AI for. And then the second quotation, the second quotation strikes me as something that might be going on in schools, especially colleges, because we know there are a lot of college kids, or anybody really, people who like to skate by. And there are already horror stories out there about how some students, high school and college, have been able to use AI to do this. They write their papers, get their papers written for them, and other things like that. So those are just some opinions that I thought were rather interesting. Okay, and next. I've recommended this before when we've had tech talks, but this is a TV program where you can get it on your computer, on PBS. It's a Frontline documentary, obviously. It was first shown in November 2019. That's a little over 5 years ago. But if you watch that, and it's fairly long, I think it's in 4 or 5 parts, so you can stop it and start it as you go, whatever you want to do. But it's still relevant because it's still 20 years after search engines were being used. So it starts out with 2 things that just blew me away when I first saw this. One is the incredible amount of Face ID that's going on in China and how they use it. And the other was self-driving semi-trucks between Los Angeles and Phoenix. I almost fell over when I saw that one. Anyway, it's an interesting documentary, and it helps you understand, even though it's from a little over 5 years ago, it helps all of us understand where we're going now, what has happened in the past, and what's going on right now. And that's all I really wanted to present. The rest needs to be discussion.
All right, Marilyn, would you like me to copy and paste this into an email and send this to people so that they can just click on the link?
Sure, that'd be great.
I will be glad to do that. Let me stop sharing, and I will do it afterwards, obviously.
Okay.
And Mary, what you could do is you could save that slideshow as a PDF, and if you send it to Debbie, she'll post it on that on the page where all of the Armchair Chat info is too.
Okay, and they're also going to get the articles that were sent too. So let me stop sharing. Okay. All right. It looks like Jean Jackman has a question. Jean, will you unmute yourself, please? You can press the space bar if you don't want to hunt for stuff, and that should let you talk. Space bar. Press your space bar and hold it down. Not working. There you go. Jean, you're on.
Oh, you muted yourself again.
Hold it down.
There you go. Oh,
Yeah.
Hold it down.
Hold it down. There.
You have to keep holding it down?
Yes.
Oh, I did not know that. So I seem to be a political activist these days, and when I write on any subjects, I have to fill out my name, address, da-da. Is there a way that I can use AI to fill out all of those petitions or letters to my Congress people?
I've noticed, what did I do the other day? I filled something out the other day, and I was in Google. It was something I clicked on in an email. And my email is Gmail. So I was within Google when I was doing it. And when I went to fill in the forms were there. All I had to do was click on the right place, and it would put my name and then my address and then, different things into the right boxes. I know that can be done in within Google, the whole Google family. I'm not sure about others. Sue?
Well, I know that, and I'm sure that we've all experienced this, where sometimes if you're filling out something either on your phone or on the computer, autofill will sometimes come up, and it'll ask you permission to go ahead and populate the categories with whatever info they have about you. And it's usually your email address, could be your address and whatever. So that's also part of AI. So your info's out there, and when you start typing and it asks you to autofill, I mean, it's your choice, but they've got your info already. So
Yeah, they do. Just about. We're all over the place, people. There's almost no way to avoid it.
yeah.
Anything else?
Actually, I have a question. Is there any way that we can tell that AI is working in the background? Is there an easy fix, an easy way to notice this?
I think probably the speed at which things happen is going to tell you that more than just about anything else. If you go in, let's use that last example. If I go in to fill out a form and bingo, my name and everything is there, and all I have to do is click and it all fills in. That's very fast. It's far faster than my typing it in every single time. And that's a form of AI, yes.
Jean, back to you. Go ahead and press your space. There you go. You're good.
Well, I don't still understand. Can I say to Chat GPT, here's my fill in for automatic fill in whenever I need it? I mean, I don't understand how I can make it happen so it will fill in when it's not filled in. Thank you.
Go ahead, Sue. You were quick. You're not AI, but you were quick.
I don't believe that you can do that. Chat, if you use, I've been playing with Chat GPT. I shared an example with Mary earlier, and I think I told Marilyn too. But chat, all of these chat bots that you encounter, you've got to type. What they're going to do is it's kind of like the generative AI concept where you put info in and then you ask it to redo it, summarize it, bullet points, whatever. But you can't put in info into like Chat GPT and say, whenever I open a form online, I want this information to go into it, because not all forms are created equal, and there's just too much out there. But so, Jean, I don't think you can do that as far as I am aware of.
Thank you.
That's probably an easier way to do it without using AI. I mean, sometimes if you just save a Word file or whatever your word processing file is, and then you can copy and paste things. When I do the legislative alerts, I type my signature and whatever I want to say, and then I just copy it and paste it into the rest of them as I go. So there may be an easier way to do that, Jean. I'm just save a Word file and copy and paste what you want to put in there, especially once you've written it and you've gotten it perfect. Why not say it over and over again?
Yeah.
That might be an easier way to go, and that way you have control over it. Jean, thank you for waiting. Please.
Yeah, I'm wondering if these are apps that I have to download on my computer or phone, or how do I access like Gemini or Chat GPT? Or go ahead.
Do you have a Gmail account?
I do, but I don't use it. I'm still using AOL. Yeah.
I imagine you could, even though you don't use it for regular stuff, if you open up your Gmail account, that Gemini icon is going to be up there toward the right. And you would just click on it and it's there.
Okay.
Otherwise, and when I use Perplexity, I've made a bookmark out of it, but or you could do it with Claude also. Just type in Claude.ai or Perplexity.ai.
Okay.
Yeah,
great. Thank you.
That's what I did with Chat GPT. I just Googled it, opened it, and used it.
Okay.
Yeah, you can just search for any of these
Oh, great. Thank you.
Nancy, thanks for waiting, and unmute yourself, please.
So I'm kind of wondering, because you know how those things come up, do you want help, blah blah blah. I'm thinking, are we being charged somehow if we click on it? You know what I mean? Like, does it cost or is it all free?
It depends. I think, and the one time I clicked on Gemini, I can get a free month using Gemini. And then if I want to continue, they're going to charge me $20 a month, whether I use it or not. So, it's just, and others, if I were in a business and I was using it all the time, say to either keep accounting spreadsheets up to date, feeding it information, etc., or anything that's automated, then I would definitely be paying a fee because I want those things kept up to date. I don't want to have to start from scratch each time.
And it might be important to also point out, Marilyn, that whenever these are being used, whether we ask them to or not, they're constantly gathering information and learning from that, and also remembering us.
Yes, and that's another thing to be cognizant of. The one that I've read about and I keep reading about is called DeepSeek. All one word jammed together, DeepSeek. Don't ever use that, ever, because all your information will be sent straight to China.
Wow.
So that's one to totally avoid.
This is why we're scared.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
There's also a way, Sue and I read Kim Commando daily. And there's a way to try to keep a lid on your information out there, and that Kim Commando recommends this company called Incogni, INCOGNI.com. And once you enter what information you believe you've entered into various websites and forms and all kinds of things like that. And it's not free, I'll tell you that. But what that company does, and they're using AI to do it, they constantly comb these websites that you and I have no concept even exist, and they're removing our information from them.
Yeah, so these are third-party websites that are out there in cyberspace collecting all your personal info.
Yeah.
And a company goes in there and they deal with those companies and remove that information for you. And then they keep track of how many sites they've contacted and how many have successfully blocked use of your personal information. So it's INCOGNI, incogni.com. And it's worth every penny because that's legwork you don't have to do to remove your stuff from the dark web out there.
Before we go on to our next questions, Sue or Marilyn, could you explain to people how do the computers know that we are we when we use our computers? The numbering system that they have, and how they can always tell where the things are coming from. They identify us with our computer, don't they?
Yes.
Each computer has a unique number.
There are various layers coming into your house. I'll just use my example right now. I'm about ready to change it when I get my nerve up. But right now I use Comcast Xfinity. It's cabled. It's tied to the side of my house. It comes through a little port in the wall in my bedroom, and that's where I have my modem set up. That's what receives the signal. And then I have a router attached to that, and my router is through Eero, EERO. And then I have a second Eero that I have elsewhere in the house. And what that does is creates a mesh system so that it sends a signal out farther. But the first contact they have is whatever number is assigned to where your internet comes into your house, your IP address. And if you go in, doesn't make any difference, go to any search engine or whatever and just type in what is my IP, it'll and hit enter and it will tell you what your IP address is. When I was and this was before, gosh, well before COVID, I was working a little bit with this online tutoring group, and every once in a while there'd be a kid who would come online to ask questions, but he was really just fooling around. And I can't remember how I did it, but I was able to figure out how to get, there was some way. Anyway, I could find an IP, I could find his IP, here's his or her IP address, which basically would tell me where in the country he was.
Yeah.
But they've got it down to a much closer. If you know somebody's actual IP address, you can find practically the address. Haven't you watched detective shows where they do that, where they take somebody's smartphone and they use the signal coming from the smartphone and they figure out exactly where that person is. That's a different system, but it's the same concept.
Yeah.
Lori Andrews?
Yes. The question that I have is that there is something that's always advertised, is DuckDuckGo, and they claim that they would be able to block AI, and so forth. And I just want to know if that is true.
I use DuckDuckGo primarily because I don't want to be tracked.
Okay.
And I use it as a search engine. And what I've noticed lately, though, is that even though I'm using DuckDuckGo, I'm still getting some of those, or I've started getting some of those search results that say sponsored or ad. And that bothers me because I can get that stuff if I just use Google. But that is their first selling point, is that they won't track you. They won't keep track of what you ask. They won't keep track of where you are, that kind of thing.
Okay. And have you found that to be true?
Apparently, because so far, I got to knock on some wood here. But apparently something is working, whether it's my Eero mesh system or the DuckDuckGo or anything else that I've used for self-protection. I'm not having any troubles that I am aware of.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Sue?
So I wanted to, most of us are kind of uncertain about this whole AI thing, and we get really nervous. My daughter teaches at Huntington Beach High School in Southern California, and she teaches AP history. And I would imagine that some of you, since we're all retired teachers, or most of us, how AI is affecting schools and classrooms, and what teachers are doing about it, what students are doing. And I expected to hear horror stories from my daughter. So she teaches high school. And she said, Mom, actually, I don't have horror stories to tell you. And I was thinking to myself, that's really interesting. And I said, aren't kids cheating with AI? And she says, Mom, stop and think. Kids have always cheated in school. They're not very good at it. In fact, they're horribly inept at cheating, and most of them get caught. Back in the day, we wrote notes and we passed notes back and forth, or you took notes and you slid them under your test paper or whatever it was that kids did. 9 out of 10 times, if a teacher is diligent, they're going to catch the cheater, right? So the same thing with AI. There are certain things that teachers now have been trained to look for when kids submit things via AI, or they have an AI chatbot write an essay for them. But she said there are so many really positive ways in which both teachers and students can use AI as a tool. So I asked her, I said, okay, give me some examples. She says, okay, she teaches history. She said she asked AI, and I don't know what chatbot she used, but she said, create a podcast with two different people having a discussion back and forth about agriculture and rural land use. She sent me that podcast, which was completely created, and I don't know whether she even submitted information, but it's a conversation like a podcast that you would subscribe to with two chatbots that sound like totally normal human beings having a discussion back and forth and asking each other questions. Now, can you imagine using that as a tool for students? The students love podcasts, they listen to them, and so they're going to listen to something like this.
Yeah.
Or how about this one? Fidel Castro's speech in 1961, and I have no idea what speech that was, but she found one that was recorded to sound like it was Snoop Dogg's voice. The kids ate it up. They were so into it. They thought that was very clever. Or here's another one. She just tells this chatbot to do this. Create a lesson plan on how World War II affected movements for equality in the United States. Base the lesson on the California history and social science standards.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole lesson plan came up. It was multi-day. Here are the objectives. Here are the lessons. Boom. And she had it within seconds. So, and I, as an English teacher, I could upload a student essay. I could upload the rubric that I was going to have the kids, grade their essays with. And as an AP teacher, if I'm going to give that kid a 3, which is right in the middle, I'm just like, I don't know whether they're a 4 down to a 2, whatever. I could upload that rubric and get feedback from the chat bot and say, what do you think? Is this a 3? Is this a 4? Is this a 2? And get their input. And, they would say, based on the rubric and the content of the essay, this is really a 3. So students can actually even ask a chatbot to ask them questions. They can take a picture of their notes that they took in class, upload the photo into the chatbot space on your computer, and then say, ask me questions about the content of my notes. And the chatbot can ask questions. You can verbally, and when you use chatbots, you can either use a microphone where you can actually talk and have a conversation back and forth, or you can type. Okay. And if you use the microphone, it creates a transcript of your whole discussion, because I used it. It's really fun. And one last example before, I don't want to hijack this meeting, but I've been playing with, I've been using the Copilot, which is on my computer. So our scholarship luncheon is coming up. We award scholarships for our division, okay, as many of your divisions do. And I wanted to have a paper on every luncheon table that has a brief bio of every student who's receiving a scholarship and kind of what their plans are and why they want to become a teacher, whatever. And so I started typing these and I'm like, I've got to do 13 of these and it's going to take me forever to do. So what I did was I took their personal essay that they wrote and submitted. I copied it, pasted it into the chat box and said, summarize this in no more than 100 words. Within 5 seconds, not even 5 seconds, 2 seconds, here's the summary. And the chatbot says, how's this? Will this work for you? Please let me know if there's any changes. And I said, make it a little less formal. Boom. It made it less formal. I copied it, I pasted it onto the paper, and I grabbed the next personal essay, put it in instantly. I had 13 summaries within 10 minutes, 15 minutes maybe.
Stick.
So I think it's fun. It is scary, but it's fun, and it's less scary the more you use it. It's like technology, anything in technology. Okay, I'm done, but I thought I would let you know how you can use it and how it's being used in schools.
Thank you, Sue. That's very helpful. Jean, we are back to you. Thank you for unmuting yourself and asking your question.
Hold down your.
An anecdote and a question. The anecdote is I listened to my granddaughter graduating from University of Michigan. First they did the PhDs, then the masters, and they were all these foreign names. And I said later to my daughter, oh my goodness, that announcer could confidently pronounce all of those very difficult foreign names without a hiccup. She said that was all being done by a computer. So I guess that was by AI.
Yes.
It was amazing, and it was a really nice voice, and it went on for so long with names I couldn't pronounce if I had 10 minutes. And then I wanted to know, why don't I want my information known by China?
To me, it's just a matter of I really don't want anybody else to know everything about me. But I especially don't want my little bunch of information along with everybody else's in this country. I don't want anything being sent to China, because then they'll turn around and use it on us in ways we can't even imagine yet, but they're working on it. If you watch the beginning of that PBS show, and this is 5 years ago that they were doing this, they were doing face recognition. And if somebody jaywalked, they were publicly shamed. That was 5 years ago. Now I have read that if somebody has done whatever the state doesn't want them to do, they're in deep trouble. They can be locked out of their workplace by their face recognition. But that's only one example. But the idea of having all of our information all over the place is what gives scammers their ammunition. And that's one of the other things that's going on. Obviously, as AI gets better, so do the scammers. They can send emails that look more unscammy, or whatever word you want to use. And we have to stay vigilant and be able to recognize those things. And it's like the FBI warning the banks, the Social Security, IRS, those kinds of businesses, they will never email, text, or call you and ask for personal information. Never. And so we all have to know that, so that, that stuff is probably already out there unless you've been on incognito for a year or whatever. But you need to be aware of that so that you don't fall into their traps.
Thank you, Marilyn. Before we go to Lori for her question, I just wanted to point out to you that Linda McClellan added something in the chat that Microsoft has added Copilot automatically when you open a Word doc, and it's also there in the upper right-hand menu bar. So that's just sharing some information which we might not already know. And if you bought a newer version of Microsoft, it comes with that one too. Okay, Lori, thank you for waiting.
Oh, sure. Thank you. I have a question with regard. I saw something not too long ago. I think his name was Roland Farrell, and he's a journalist, I believe, for the New Yorker. And he did a lot of research on AI and so forth. And he recommended that people should actually turn their systems off, like their computers and phones and things like that, periodically, to keep being attacked or whatever. And so I was just wondering what your thoughts are about that.
I do that on a regular basis. Just well, I've got an iPhone, an iPad, and a Mac, and I just restart everything. One of the things, and it's hard to explain, and I I don't think I could even demonstrate it. But if, say, on an iPhone, or really, I think you can do it on any phone, if you put your thumb at the bottom as if you're going to exit an app, you're going to make it go away, but just bring it up a little bit. And then all the apps that you've had open recently show up, and you can make them go away, so that you're basically clearing the cache. You can clear the cache on your computer too if you want. But clearing all that stuff out and then turning whatever it is, computer, phone, iPad, whatever, off, totally off, and leave it that way for, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 minutes, whatever. You probably should do that with your modem every once in a while too. And just let it completely reset and start from scratch. And that does two things. It clears everything, and it makes everything run, or it should make everything run faster on whatever device you're talking about.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Have you all noticed too that sometimes now, especially with AI being prevalent, so when you go in and you want to search something on your computer and you type in something, like Mount Everest on your computer, the first item that comes up, at least on my computer, is an AI generated response, which I find to be much more thorough and accurate than having to scroll through until you find the one, search that you look for that you really think looks legit. So I find that to be very, very helpful, because the response that AI provides for me, which is the very first one that's listed there, has little links with even more information that you can get. So if you want additional information, so anytime you search for something, that AI generated response should typically be at the top, and click on that, because it provides pretty detailed information, explanations, and additional items that you can click on to get more information or more specific information on the topic, whatever you're searching on. So
Right.
that's just something you might want to look at too.
And when I've run whatever, if it's but whether it's a very specific question or a general search or whatever, when I've run them on Perplexity, and so I'm assuming that this kind of thing shows up on the others too, in the answers, I get citations. And I can click on those citations to read more on each of the responses.
On the ones that I get, the citations are off to the right. They're on the right-hand side in like a little box.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it tells you where the info is coming from that they're getting.
Exactly.
And that's kind of nice. So you can check out the legitimacy of that as well.
Right.
Just because it's on the internet doesn't mean it's right?
Doesn't
mean it's accurate.
That's for sure.
Correct.
That's what we graded our student papers. We all found that out in the past. So, wow, this has been terrific. I know most of you are sitting there soaking all this information in like the sponges that we are. We always love to be more educated. So thank you all for coming. And this is your chance to ask a question you've been wanting to ask the whole time, but haven't had an opportunity to, because we're going to go ahead and close this in a few minutes unless you ask more questions.
Folks, go out and play with it.
Yeah.
Okay. So pull it up. And this is stuff that any of you who have come to any of our tech talks or CTC trainings or anything like that, I keep telling you that you can't break it. Okay. You can't break it. You just have to learn how to use it. And the first time I used I think it was ChatGPT was actually the first one that I used. And you know, oh, here's another way that I did this. So some of you received my CTC end of year survey, right? Okay, some of you had that. So when I got the survey completed, Google creates like graphs and charts and whatever. And I compiled all that info, and I had a whole bunch of percentages, what percentage responded to this way, what percent this way, this way, this way. Okay, so I had a bunch of data, right? So I literally copied all of that, put it into ChatGPT, and I said, provide me a summary of these results. I'm going to hand that handout out to the board at the board meeting at convention because it not only summarized each of the categories for me, but also provided the strengths and areas of need that our organization has and needs with regard to technology use and things like that. It took like, what, 30 seconds? Maybe it wasn't even 30 seconds. It's like 5 seconds. That's how fast it can get done. So you can put in anything. You just copy it and paste it into the little bar there. There's always a little bar, where you can type something in, or you can click on the microphone and you can just ask a question. Play around, click the microphone, and you can pick the voice you want. So if you want a British voice, you can get the British voice, It's really funny. You can get Australian voices, British voices, whatever. You find the voice that you want, and you can have a conversation with a chatbot on anything. You can ask them, how hot is the core of the sun, and they'll tell you. So it's just, it's just play with it.
And I think, Sue, that's an excellent example. You could have done that yourself after you spent 5 or 6 hours doing all of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
But you saved some time
Yes.
by using AI. And I think that's an excellent use. Saving time so you can do other things with your time.
Yeah,
I think
it was like,
use of this. It's not.
It was like you.
It's
It was like
augmenting you.
Yeah. It was like the summarizing of each of those kids' personal essays into, can you imagine if I had to type up all that stuff, but to just put that in, and within 2 seconds, I had a 100-word summary. It made it, and you have to review it, folks. You can't just take it at face value because they'll mess up stuff too, so got to be careful.
And Marilyn, I see you put some things in the chat. Are you going to describe what those are?
Yes. One of the things that I really recommend you do is to read lots. And I put in the chat the websites for various magazines that I've found, and they're not the only ones, but they're the primary ones that I use that, and they don't have 100% AI articles, but you can go into the websites and scroll, find one you're interested in and read, but just keep reading. Yeah, we all have to keep reading about this stuff because it's changing. It's changing all the time. Cognitive AI, the whole concept is indicative of the fact that it's always changing itself up.
Marilyn, would you send me those links to the different magazines, and I will put them in the email I'm going to send everybody, and as well as getting them online with Debbie Talpans, Debbie Payton Newberry.
I will do that.
I also put kimcommando.com in there. You can get a free daily newsletter sent to your inbox, and she covers all sorts of information that's techie related, including scams, recent scams that you can avoid. She has a link to a podcast that she does, but she addresses a lot of AI concerns and issues, and presents the positive elements too. Mm-hmm. So I would go to Kim Commando, and yeah, that is her name, Kim Commando, with a K, both Ks, kimcommando.com, and then subscribe to the free daily newsletter that comes into your inbox. if you don't want to read it that day, just delete it. But scroll through, you might find something that you are interested in, including AI.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. This has just been incredible for me. I've learned so much in this short amount of time we've had together. Thank you, Marilyn. Thank you, Sue, for sharing everything that you have shared with us. And we have food for thought. So yes, thank you very much. And I would like to say that this is going to be my last armchair chat that I'm going to be coordinating, because I am going to be taking on different responsibilities after convention. And so I would like to introduce to you Nancy Roberts, who is Area 1 co-director, and she's there. Nancy, would you wave at everybody? And starting with the fall, and I think our next one is scheduled for August, she's going to be taking care of coordinating the armchair chats for the area directors. So Nancy, we're looking forward to seeing you, and we'll be working together to make sure that everything goes smoothly from your point of view.
Thank you, Nancy.
Yes, thank you, Nancy, for taking this on. It's, you guys, it's always hard to find volunteers to do stuff, and Nancy stepped up and volunteered. So Nancy, I thank you very much. Sometimes
Well, and Mary promised to help me
I
get
did
going.
promise.
So
There's always people that are willing to help. Mentors are bound in CalRTA. Okay, you all, this is going to be on the website. This has been taped, and so will be up there. So tell your friends, because I know of the people that registered and said, oh, I can't come, I'm so sorry. I told them it was going to be recorded. So it will be there. So thank you all for participating. You are one of the best audiences I've had all year. Thank you for joining us.